Have you ever stopped to wonder who really owns America? Most people would quickly answer, the American people. After all, this is the land of freedom and democracy, right? But the truth is far more complicated. Behind the flag, behind the politicians, and even behind the government, there are powerful groups and hidden forces that hold more influence than most of us realize. America is not just a country. It's a vast system of land, money, companies, and resources. And the question of ownership is not about who lives here, but about who controls these things. In this video, we're going to dig deeper. From billionaires buying up huge areas of farmland, to financial giants that quietly control the stock market, and even foreign powers with stakes in America's future, you'll see that ownership isn't as simple as it looks. Stay with me until the end, because the answer may surprise you. By the time we're done, you'll look at America in a whole new way. When we talk about who owns America, the first thing that comes to mind is land. After all, land is the foundation of power. So, who really owns the ground beneath our feet? It may surprise you, but almost 60% of land in the United States is privately owned. That means regular people, families, farmers, and companies hold the deeds. But here's the catch. A huge share of that private land is not in the hands of small families. It's concentrated among the wealthy and powerful. Billionaires like Bill Gates, Ted Turner, and Jeff Bezos have quietly become some of the largest landowners in America. Gates alone has bought more than 200,000 acres of farmland across multiple states. Why? Some say it's for future food security. Others believe it's about profit and control. Then there are corporations and investment groups. They've been buying land not just for farming, but also for housing, energy projects, and natural resources. In many areas, entire neighborhoods are now controlled by big companies that rent out homes, making it harder for ordinary families to ever own property. And we can't forget the foreign investors. Governments and private companies from China, Saudi Arabia, and Europe own millions of acres of U.S. land. In fact, foreign entities own more than 40 million acres, an area larger than the entire state of Florida. So when we ask, who owns the land of America? The answer is layered. Yes, many families still own their homes and farms. But more and more, the land is being scooped up by billionaires, corporations, and even foreign governments. And that's only the beginning, because land is just one piece of the puzzle. To truly see who owns America, we need to look at the companies and corporations that control daily life. Land may be the foundation, but in today's world, the real power often comes from corporations. The companies that dominate technology, food, energy, and media are some of the most powerful forces in America. Think about it. Every time you shop, eat, or even open your phone, chances are you're putting money into the pockets of just a handful of giant corporations. In fact, most of the products we use every day come from companies controlled by only a few major players. For example, in the food industry, a few corporations like Nestle, PepsiCo, and Kraft Heinz dominate the shelves in grocery stores. In technology, companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon don't just sell products. They shape the way we live, work, and communicate. The same goes for energy and transportation. Oil giants, car manufacturers, and utility companies make decisions that affect the cost of gas, electricity, and even how far you could travel. These are decisions ordinary citizens have little control over. And then there's the media. A small group of corporations owns most of the television networks, radio stations, and newspapers in America. This means a large part of the information we consume is filtered through a few powerful voices. What makes this even more important is that many of these corporations are connected. They share investors, board members, and financial ties that keep the power in the hands of a few. On the surface, it looks like competition. But behind the scenes, the money often flows back to the same groups. So while millions of small businesses keep the economy alive, the real ownership of influence, of profit, and of control sits with a handful of corporations. And the deeper we look, the clearer it becomes. These companies don't just own businesses, they own parts of our daily lives. But there's still another layer, hidden in plain sight. Because the corporations themselves are often controlled by even bigger players, the financial institutions. If corporations shape our daily lives, then who controls the corporations? The answer takes us to Wall Street and the financial giants that move money behind the scenes. At the top of this list are three powerful names: BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. These investment firms manage tens of trillions of dollars. To put that into perspective, that's more money than the GDP of most countries in the world combined. These firms don't just invest in one company. They invest in almost every company. From tech giants like Apple and Microsoft, to food producers, energy corporations, and even media outlets, their fingerprints are everywhere. In many cases, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are the largest shareholders. This gives them quiet but enormous power. They don't need to run the companies directly. By owning big slices of stock, they can influence decisions, shape corporate policies, and guide the direction of entire industries. And most people have no idea this is happening. Think about it. While we see corporations competing on the surface, much of that competition is owned by the same financial giants. It's like watching two rival sports teams, only to find out later that the same person owns both of them. And it doesn't stop there. Banks and hedge funds also play a major role. They control lending, mortgages, and credit, the very tools that decide who gets to build businesses, buy homes, or invest in the future. So while the average American might think of ownership in terms of their home or savings account, the real power sits in the hands of financial institutions that manage money on a scale we can barely imagine. Which raises an even bigger question. If these firms and banks hold so much, how much does the U.S. government itself actually own? Now, let's shift our focus to the U.S. government. Because while billionaires, corporations, and financial giants hold massive power, the government itself is also one of the largest landowners in America. In fact, the federal government owns nearly 30% of all land in the United States. That's hundreds of millions of acres. This land includes national parks, forests, wildlife reserves, and even military bases spread across the country. Why does this matter? Because government-owned land isn't just about preserving nature. It also includes rich resources, oil, gas, timber, and minerals that are vital to America's economy. Control of these resources gives the government a powerful stake in who benefits from them. But here's the twist. Even when the government owns the land, private companies often profit from it. Through leases, contracts, and partnerships, big corporations gain access to drill for oil, cut timber, or mine valuable resources on public land. So once again, ownership becomes blurry. Beyond land, the government also holds influence through regulation and taxation. It sets the rules that businesses and citizens must follow. Yet, critics argue that government decisions are often influenced by lobbyists and wealthy donors. In other words, while the government owns a lot on paper, the real benefits may still flow back to private hands. So yes, the U.S. government is a powerful owner in America. But its ownership is tied to politics, special interests, and corporate influence. Which leads us to another layer of the puzzle, one that's less visible, but just as important: the hidden influence of foreign investors and elites. When we ask who owns America, we can't ignore the role of outsiders. Because not all of America is owned by Americans. Today, foreign investors own more than 40 million acres of U.S. land, an area bigger than the state of Florida. Some of this land is farmland, some is forest, and some is in key areas near military bases or water sources. This has sparked debates about national security and long-term control. Foreign governments and corporations also invest heavily in American companies. From tech startups in Silicon Valley to real estate in New York and Los Angeles, international money is deeply woven into the U.S. economy. China, Canada, Saudi Arabia, and European nations all hold significant stakes. But it doesn't stop with foreign ownership. Inside the country, power often concentrates in the hands of elites, wealthy families, powerful lobbyists, and political donors. These groups shape policy, steer elections, and influence decisions that affect millions of people. They may not own land or companies directly, but their wealth buys influence, and influence often translates into control. Add to this the network of lobbyists in Washington, who spend billions each year to sway lawmakers. Their goal is simple: protect the interests of those who already hold power. This means that while the government writes the laws, many of those laws are shaped by people working behind the scenes. So, when we look at ownership in America, it isn't just about who has the land or the buildings. It's also about who pulls the strings. And often, those strings are held by wealthy elites and foreign investors who see America not just as a country, but as an opportunity. Now, we've looked at land, corporations, banks, government, and foreign influence. The final step is to put all the pieces together. Because the real answer to who owns America is not simple. It's layered, and it changes the way we see power in this country. So, after everything we've uncovered, who really owns America? The truth is, ownership is divided and layered. Families and individuals still own homes, farms, and businesses. The government holds vast areas of land and resources. Corporations dominate industries that shape our everyday lives. Financial giants like BlackRock and Vanguard quietly control the flow of money behind the scenes. And foreign investors, along with powerful elites, hold influence that reaches deep into the heart of America. It's not just one answer. It's a web of ownership, influence, and power that works together, sometimes in the open, but often in the shadows. For the average American, it can feel like ownership is slipping further away. Homes get more expensive, farmland moves into corporate hands, and decisions that affect millions are made in boardrooms or behind closed doors. But here's the takeaway. Knowing who owns America helps us understand who really holds the power. And once you know that, you can see the bigger picture, how wealth, politics, and influence are connected, and why ordinary people sometimes feel powerless. So, next time you ask yourself, who owns America? Remember, it's not just the people. It's the billionaires, the corporations, the banks, the government, the foreign investors, and the elites who control the resources, the money, and the decisions. And that's the reality most people never think about. When you hear the word billionaire, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Maybe you imagine luxury mansions, private jets, or the idea of someone who made it big, chasing the American dream. For most of us, billionaires are painted as symbols of success, the people we're told to admire or even envy. But what if the story we see isn't the whole truth? What if behind the shiny headlines and glamorous lifestyles, they're the darker side that rarely gets spoken about? In this video, we're going to peel back the curtain and take a closer look at that hidden reality. And here's the reward. If you stay with me till the very end, you'll walk away with a completely new perspective on wealth and power in America, one that might change how you see the world forever. America has always celebrated billionaires as proof that the American dream is real. From childhood, we hear stories of people who started with nothing and built empires worth billions. Their names fill magazines, news channels, and social media feeds, making them look like larger-than-life heroes. But here's what often gets overlooked. Success stories don't always tell the full story. Behind every fortune lies a complex path, one that sometimes includes decisions that harm workers, communities, or even the economy itself. We admire billionaires for their wealth, but rarely ask tough questions about how that wealth was created. And when we do, the answers are not always comfortable. That's exactly where this journey begins, moving past the glossy headlines to uncover the side of American billionaires that many prefer to keep hidden. For many billionaires, wealth doesn't just come from innovation or hard work. It often comes from squeezing the very people who help build their empires. Think about it. While workers put in long hours, struggling with rising costs of living, the owners at the top see their fortunes grow by the minute. Some companies keep wages so low that employees can't afford basic needs, yet the executives are pocketing millions every single day. This isn't just about one person making more than another. It's about the gap between the ultra-rich and everyday Americans becoming wider than ever before. Today, the richest billionaires hold more wealth than entire groups of millions of families combined. And that imbalance doesn't just affect paychecks, it shapes the entire society we live in. It decides who has opportunities and who gets left behind. Money doesn't just buy comfort, it buys power. In America, billionaires often use their fortunes to shape politics, laws, and even public opinion. Through massive campaign donations and lobbying, they make sure the system works in their favor. Policies that could raise their taxes or give more rights to workers often get blocked, while laws that protect their wealth move forward quietly. This influence doesn't stop with government. It stretches into media, technology, and even education. The result? Ordinary people are left with less of a voice, while a small group of the ultra-rich gets to set the rules of the game. And the more power they gain, the harder it becomes to challenge them, creating a cycle where money and influence keep feeding each other. Behind the polished image of billionaires, there are stories that rarely make it to the spotlight. Many of them have been accused of avoiding taxes through complex loopholes and offshore accounts, keeping billions hidden while ordinary citizens pay their share. Some face lawsuits over unsafe working conditions, wage theft, or environmental damage caused by their companies. Others are caught in scandals that expose how far they'll go to protect their fortunes. Yet, despite these controversies, their public image often remains spotless, built through PR teams, charitable donations, and carefully crafted media appearances. What the world sees is generosity and success. What's hidden is a trail of disputes, lawsuits, and broken trust. Billionaires don't just influence business. They shape the very world we live in. Their companies play a role in issues like climate change, rising housing costs, and even the control of vital resources. When one billionaire decides to buy up land or corner a market, millions of people can feel the impact. And while many promote their charities and foundations as proof of giving back, those donations are often tiny compared to the damage caused by their business practices. It raises an uncomfortable question. Can you really call it generosity if the harm outweighs the help? For everyday people, the choices of billionaires can mean higher rents, fewer job protections, or even a planet pushed closer to crisis. Their decisions don't just build wealth. They shape futures for better or worse. For some billionaires, money is never enough. No matter how many billions they already own, the hunger for more keeps driving them. This obsession with wealth and power often becomes like an addiction, an endless chase that leaves little room for empathy or balance. And when the goal is always more, it usually comes at someone else's expense. Workers are pushed harder, prices are raised higher, and competitors are crushed. Psychologists say that extreme wealth can even change how people see the world, making them less likely to understand the struggles of ordinary lives. In the end, what looks like success on the outside can actually reveal something darker inside, a mindset that values profit above people. So when we look past the headlines and the glossy magazine covers, a very different picture begins to emerge. The dark side of American billionaires isn't just about their personal choices. It's about the system that allows extreme wealth to grow while millions struggle. It's about workers who can't make ends meet, politicians swayed by money, and communities paying the price for corporate decisions. Yes, some billionaires give to charity, but that doesn't erase the deeper costs of how their fortunes were built. And that leaves us with a question worth thinking about. Is the story of American billionaires really one of success, or is it one of sacrifice, where the gains of a few come at the expense of many? Because in the end, it's not just about how they got rich, it's about who paid the price for it.